Contrary to popular belief, I actually have nothing against casual Yu-Gi-Oh players, and in fact, I really actually like their comments and enjoy them. Some of my favorite comments from recent memory are from people that say that they play the game casually and that my videos were either able to help them out, beating their friends and stuff like that, or if they were just found them entertaining, which I think is really exciting. I even get comments from people that don't play the game anymore, and those types of comments actually make up the majority of my audience. If you think of any sort of card game or even just game in general, the majority of people aren't going to be competitive players. The majority are going to be people that play the game maybe once a week or once a month, something along those lines, and I understand that when I make videos. However, I do dislike the casual elitists because they really think in some cases that they are better than other people, better than the other casuals, better than the metagame players, better than the rogue players, simply because they are casuals. And in today's video, I wanted to take some of my funniest comments that I posted on Twitter over the past couple months and kind of read them out loud. Now, if you aren't following me on Twitter, feel free to. I do post these about once a week, but I wanted to do a whole video just kind of going over some of my favorite ones from the past couple months because these are all hilarious. A lot of them are extremely long, especially compared to other comments, and a lot of them invoke the same sort of ideas. I think one of the most common ideas is the Mandela effect, which is when a whole group of people sort of misremember something. In a lot of these cases, people are sort of putting on their nostalgia goggles a little too tight, so they remember the olden days a little bit different than they actually happened, because old Yu-Gi-Oh! It was definitely fun in its own right, but it definitely had a lot of the issues that new Yu-Gi-Oh! Has. There was still a defined metagame, there was usually a best deck, and oftentimes even as early as like 2007, the best deck cost over $1,000, so the game, while it has changed, a lot of it has actually stayed the same, and I think that what happens a lot of times with these comments is they're from people that played the game with their friends in their lunchroom table or at recess, and that's what they're remembering Yu-Gi-Oh! As. But it turns out if you play the game casually right now and never go to any tournaments, the games will actually be pretty similar to how they were 10 years ago. It's just that when you look at what they're doing is they're looking at the casual version of the game 10 years ago and comparing it to the competitive version of the game right now, which obviously isn't going to be a very good comparison, because if you go back and look at the competitive game in like 2005, there were still a lot of the sort of decision-making processes that we are doing right now way back in 2005, and I think that's really cool, but the casual landscape was nowhere near where the competitive landscape was back then. So anyway, without further ado, let's look at some hilarious casual elitist comments. One of the most common casual elitist comments is from people that think that the cards that exist in the TCG have sort of hidden effects. Now, obviously, this came up a lot more on the Egyptian God video compared to other videos, but this comment is one that I found hilarious, not only because it is sort of suggesting that Ra has a ton of extra abilities, but also because it's like the longest run-on sentence ever. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll try to read as much as possible. So this commenter says, in the weirdest way possible, Ra has an extra effect that isn't stated on the card, but it does exist. The effect is the 3 monsters you use to summon Ra. Their combined attack and defense points are Ra's attack and defense points. When they printed the card, they are going to add it in, but they were afraid that if the card had too much text, people wouldn't want to use it because of reading all the text. The reason why it says pay your life points, you only have 100 left, is that you just amp up Ra's attack points even more. The reason why I know this is because I talked with one of the workers at Konami, and this is what they told me. Believe me, Ra's is a power card. I once got him up to 44,000 attack, which in Yu-Gi-Oh! Standards, that is basically infinite, though the way it did this, okay, I can't read anymore. Anyway, this is like hilarious for a lot of reasons. I kind of forgot about the fact that he put the I talked to Konami thing in this comment, but this is one of those situations where it's like, this is clearly someone that only played with their friends and probably played with an unofficial or the non-legal version of the Egyptian God cards, and suddenly thinks that, yeah, it has a ton of hidden abilities that were apparent in the anime, but turns out, as I've explained in a couple videos, cards do what they say they do, and they don't have hidden abilities. That's not something that's present in Yu-Gi-Oh!, but this person seems to think otherwise, and you know what? If I talked to a worker at Konami that told me otherwise, I too would probably leave comments like this. Another extremely popular theme throughout many of these comments is the whole idea that everyone else is just simply not as good as they are, and they feel that if they went to tournaments, they'd be able to beat everyone, and they don't really understand why no one else is sort of catching their hidden strategies. And I think this comment is a great example of this. This was left on a Cyberdark video, and I really want to focus on the second paragraph where this commenter says, "Truth is, this is a deck for advanced duelists," and and in a way, it works like the white deck by having your grave on point. A duelist's lack of options after Horn, Edge, and Keel take a hit is why their Cyberdark decks fail. Dr. XYZ is my, I don't know who Dr. XYZ is my go-to, and if I have all three of them, Evil Swarm, Ouroboros, if not, Link 2 or 3 plays. If nothing else, remember that these monsters belong to Zane Truesdale, who, in my opinion, is a technical duelist. If you use Graveyard Trade Economy like Frogs use Deck Trade Economy, whatever the hell that means, and rock proper ranks, this deck is a force to be reckoned with. Now, all of these commenters, I have a feeling if they went to a regional qualifier, would very quickly find out that they weren't as humble as they thought they should be. I think one of my favorite things to do is take players that have only played at locals to their first regional qualifier. I think it's really fun to kind of see people have their mind blown at how much more there is to this game. But this type of comment is only left by someone that has never been to a even halfway decent sized tournament, and I think that's kind of interesting to kind of see. I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of someone that thinks that they're better than everyone else, but they just haven't had time to put it into practice. This person uses a lot of fancy terminology that doesn't really mean that much, and I just found it kind of funny, so that's why I wanted to talk about that one. Moving on though, another common theme that I see a lot in these comments is simply talking about how meta duelists always are just paying the top dollar for the best cards in the game, and that's the only reason they're winning, and also they think that every meta deck is like exactly the same, and this comment perfectly exemplifies that. So this person says, you are so full of BS. We all know that the game is unbalanced. Just because you don't have the balls to stick to your personal deck, whatever that means, and you drop some 500, 600 bucks on the latest meta deck BS deck doesn't make you a better duelist. It makes you a jerk that feels entitled to win because you use a meta deck which you copied from the internet and changed like 2 cards, and you're calling it original and unique. We spent, I don't know who the we is, we spent years and resources to build our deck as best as we can. Red Eyes in my case, not surprising actually about that. And here comes a meta a-hole with a Trickstar deck that plays his turn for half an hour while you just watch and gets a burn FTK. This is also a pretty common theme. I don't think I have another comment for this, but a lot of people that comment these things have no idea how the meta works. They understand like the surface level analysis of how the metagame works. This guy probably read a couple Trickstar cards and said, oh, they do burn damage, it must be a burn FTK. I think anyone that's played against Trickstar more than like one time realizes the deck really isn't about burning the opponent, it's just about card advantage and that kind of stuff. And also Trickstar is a deck that doesn't really have a lot of combos, so I'm a little confused why he thinks that it takes half an hour to do a Trickstar turn. Trickstars are actually kind of considered a fairly linear deck on the early stages of the game because you just like summon Candina pass. But anyway, that's not skill. You don't respect us enough to play fairly, so why should we respect you for playing some broken cards that are clearly overpowered and unfair? Just because Konami can't balance their game to save their lives doesn't mean you have to play the whole meta crap. It's like going to the Olympics on steroids. It's definitely not, because you're a meta athlete. That's absolutely the worst analogy I've ever read about meta players, because that's actually cheating in the Olympics. It's not cheating. Like, you don't get any special awards for playing bad decks at regionals, and there is no such thing. As for having fun winning, again, there is no such thing. Wait, what? He said, that guy literally just said, non-ironically, that there's no such thing as having fun winning. And I think that perfectly summarizes exactly everything this guy stands for. This last comment sort of envelops a lot of the things that I've already talked about. It talks about playing a deck for a long time. It talks about thinking that they're better than everyone else. It talks about all that kind of stuff. And I thought it'd be a great one to end on. It also was fairly recent. So this person said, you're wrong. Dark Magician decks are good, better now than ever before, which is technically true. Maybe not the good part, but they are better than they ever have been. I should know. I've played Dark Magician since day one back in 2002, which is long before like was an archetype card. It takes skills and experience to play that deck. Maybe you just lack the skills or patience required for a Dark Magician deck, and that's okay. Everyone has a different way of approaching the Dark Magician deck, and everyone has their own ace card. Yours just happens to not be Dark Magician. You know what? The second half of that statement wasn't so bad, but I do think it's funny. I do think it's interesting. A lot of these times, the people that are playing these sort of really, really casual strategies think that the reason that other people aren't playing those decks is because they don't have the skills or patience or any of that stuff to actually learn how to play it, when actually it's quite the opposite. Most of the top players have a ton of patience and a lot of skill, and they actually sit down and theory test all sorts of strategies. And I think that's really something that a lot of casual players don't realize, is that the meta players, the quote-unquote meta players, they're not just picking up the best deck and saying this is what I'm going to play because everyone else says it's best. They're actually trying out hundreds of different cards and strategies to come to the conclusion that this is the best deck. And I think that's something that a lot of these players just don't understand on a fundamental level, so it makes it really silly talking about it. But obviously these sort of casual strategies in a lot of cases actually take less skill to play because they don't have as many options and they're not really playing against competitive players, which means that the games overall are just a lot easier. Anyway though, that is going to be the last comment that I'm going to talk about. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you'd like to see more of these comments, maybe I'll do another video, but also you can just follow me on Twitter at Dzeeff, kind of unsurprising, and I do post like one of these every single week. Just kind of when I scroll through all the YouTube comments, I like finding some of the funnier ones and posting them for you guys to sort of laugh at and analyze for yourself. Anyway though, I will see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.